Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about American politics, and we're going to talk about the podcast. We never had this conversation. It's run by Rikki Schlott, and she just had on Coleman Hughes. Now, this is brand new. I have a great source that kind of sends me new and different stuff, and I really thought this was fascinating. So, Coleman Hughes had a conversation with Rikki Schlott, and they talked about a lot of stuff. But what I want to talk about today is they talked about men being more religious than women. Right? I've heard this multiple times that men are more religious than women now. And then I thought, and then I immediately like, okay, well that's nice data, but we all know data doesn't matter anymore. You can collect all the data you want. Nobody's gonna listen to you, right? Like you have your little clique, and they all love your numbers, but nobody else trusts them, right? So I thought about it. Is that happening in my church, right? And what I've seen in my church, I think, does indicate this. So one, I have not seen more men showing up in the church. That what we have seen is a new family showing up, right? So, and not a ton, but a steady flow, right? And so it'd be husband and wife, maybe some kids, or husband and wife, right? And we have seen that. So I'm not seeing an increase of men coming in over women. What I have seen, though, is men more engaged in the church than ever, and our men's ministry stronger than it's ever been. But that men's ministry being stronger than it's ever been is like the men doing a half to three quarters of what the women are doing on their schedule, right? So that's pretty good. So, and that would indicate what they're saying. Now, there's a few other numbers that I was thinking about. So one, I do think this is true, right? So I have not seen this in my church yet. I've seen men more engaged and doing things, painting the church, doing handyman jobs around the church, as well as attending, right? And even just the overall engagement is up for men. So we haven't seen more men there, but we absolutely have seen that the men that are there are more engaged and doing more than ever, right? And so, and it helps me believe that maybe in other churches they're actually seeing more men showing up, or more women leaving, right? And then there were more men than there were before. So I do think that is very interesting and fascinating. That is a really fascinating, interesting concept, okay? All right. Now, why could this be true? Another reason this could be true is men are not going to college, right? Which means they're going to be more desperate and more in need of aid, right? And so why would that be? Well, one of the things this is astonishing. We learned through this last election what actually happens when you go to college, okay? So here's what happens. One, you're going to make more money for the rest of your life. Oh, and by the way, men are dropping out of college like crazy. Men are not going or dropping out at a faster rate than ever before, okay? Women are going and finishing college at a faster rate than ever before. And that means that generally men are going through life without a degree, which means they're more desperate and more in need, okay? Monetarily, let's get there. Monetarily, this gets very interesting. So monetarily, you're gonna have a very hard time getting through life. You're gonna suffer economic woe, right? And if you go to college, it's gonna be very easy to pay your bills and put a roof over your head, feed yourself, and get clothing. But without college, it's gonna be very difficult to do that, right? Now, who needs God? The needy. So this would make sense that women who have embraced college now need religion less, right? And men who are not going to college and are far more likely to suffer economic woe desperately need college. That's very interesting. That's very, very interesting. Now you're like, oh my gosh, it definitely sounds like you should go to college. It's a little more complicated than that, because this is the part we didn't know about college. Okay, so college gives you lots of money, and by the way, this whole college debt thing is a ridiculous boogeyman that doesn't exist. There's this whole idea of, I went to college and now I have lots of debt and woe is me. It's complete bunk. You can get hired very easily with a college education. It's extremely difficult to get hired without a college degree. Okay. All right. So why shouldn't everybody just go to college and drink it all in? Right. Well, believe it or not, I actually think you should go to college, but you need to be aware of a couple facts here. All right, let's get all the way there. When you go to college, okay, you increase one thing, and then but you lose two others. Okay, so we have buckets, okay, and those buckets contain so what are the buckets? Okay, knowledge, wisdom, and identity. Okay, so we have three buckets. Okay, and so before you go to college, you have three buckets. You have a bucket for knowledge, you have a bucket for identity, and you have a bucket for I'm sorry, you have a bucket for knowledge, a bucket for wisdom, and a bucket for identity. Okay, and they're all made of wood. All right. If you don't go to college, you keep those three wooden buckets. Okay. If you go to college, they smash those other two buckets. The wisdom bucket is smashed when you go to college. The identity bucket is smashed when you go to college. They're flinders. They don't exist anymore. And the knowledge bucket is made larger and made with titanium. You are going to get knowledge when you go to college, but you're going to destroy your wisdom bucket. You will not even be able to recognize wisdom by the time you get out of college. This isn't a joke. When you go to college, they literally tell you know nothing and devalue knowledge on day one. It's incredible. Like they're like, the thing we will give you the biggest bucket for and make that bucket out of titanium. We're not even going to acknowledge you have it after you have it. Like it's not a joke. It's real, right? Which is astonishing. Your wisdom bucket is destroyed and your identity bucket is destroyed. So what's even more wild is with no money, and it's completely counterintuitive. With no money, you should be in a situation where you're sad and struggling, but that's the exact opposite. You're going to have this titanium bucket. You're going to have lots of money coming in, but you're going to be very sad. Whereas the men who are not going to college are, I feel like, actually have a better possibility of finding happiness and even recognizing happiness, right? This is very complicated and also a very real problem we just identified that we really need to fix. I have 2 degrees and I highly recommend you go to college, but you need to go to college you need to go to college, and what we need to do is figure out how to hide. When we go into college, we need to hide our wisdom bucket and our identity bucket and pick it up on the other side. That's what we need to do, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.